Good morning. Good morning. That was interesting. I had never sung that song before, but I saw the words. Leanne had years ago put all words on up in the screensaver thing, and I put them up, and I said to Nico, "Do you remember this song?" He said, "Oh yeah, I remember that." And I said again, "Do you remember this song?" He said, "Oh yeah, I remember that."
Quite right.
So we'll have to get our heads together.
It was like 75%, and that last 25% was kind of funky.
There you go.
We did it.
We did do it.
We did.
made it.
I need to turn myself on here. There, now I'm on again. All right.
Oh.
Breathe. Okay, I have found that many students of New Thought do not like the word God because it conjures up images of memories of what was, for many of us, a difficult and unpleasant experience that we've chosen to leave behind. We don't like the idea of this loving Father who loves us so much that he sets all these booby traps and temptations for us and send us to burn in hell if we miss one or two of them. We're not too happy about that. And so in New Thought, we often use alternative words for it. We might use spirit or first cause or creator or source or universal mind or love. And for me, I personally have come full circle. I like the word God now because we've said it so often in our opening. There's one power and one presence, and that's how I think of God now. For me, it's the only word big enough really to include all of that, to embrace all of those words. But yet for many people, it's still a word that restricts. So know that when I use the word God, it means all of that, not the big guy up there. And in Unity, we apply that critical thinking to everything that's been taught to us or suggested to us. And we look inside to see for ourselves what is true for me. For instance, here's a question that we sometimes get asked. Was Jesus the Son of God? Yes, absolutely. Just like you and me. You know, a great disservice was done to us in 325 AD at the Council of Nicaea. Everybody heard of that?
Oh, yeah.
That's when the Pope got the people together. No, it was the Emperor, actually, the Emperor of Rome, and he pulled a bit of a trick. All in those days, as now, the early Christians, like us, were kind of free thinkers, so they didn't all agree. There were several factions. Now, the Pope was having trouble ruling all these people because he couldn't, appeal to their common belief. So he called all the leaders of all the various factions together, and he said, you codify your religion, that is, make it cohesive, that all of you believe the same thing and teach your people the same thing so that they have to believe the same thing, so I know how to control them, ultimately. Now, how do you rule 2.5 million people who are all thinking for themselves, who don't think that the government is the ultimate authority? They were listening to a man like Jesus who said the ultimate authority is within, right? I mean, we all have laws sometimes that are unjust. Our government isn't right. And within ourselves, we know this is the ultimate authority. The emperor didn't like that. It was pretty hard to control all those. So the various priests and leaders of the church, they were human. And they realized, that kind of gives us some power, doesn't it? So they got together and they did it. And the Nicene Creed was developed at that conference. And you've probably said it if you've ever been to a traditional church. We believe in God, the Father, the Almighty, maker of heaven and earth, of all that is seen and unseen. Yes, you've said that. And later on it says, eternally begotten of the Father, God from God, light from light, true God from true God, begotten, not made, of one being with the Father. And that all sounds really good, except that they put in the word only. We believe in Jesus, the only Son of God. And that one little word almost lost the Christ message for us forever. What they did was, in saying that Jesus was the only Son of God, was that they lost his humanity and saw him only as divine. And we lost our divinity, and it separated Jesus from us. Yes? So he can do it, but you can't expect me to follow these teachings because I'm just an ordinary little human. It gave us an excuse as well. So if they had told us more about Jesus' humanity, told us that he did all the things that we do, had all the temptations we do, that he fell, that he stumbled, that he cried, that he violated his own principles from time to time, was human. For instance, one day you heard he was out walking in the countryside and he was hungry and he came across a little fig tree and the fig tree had no figs on it. It wasn't even fig season, but Jesus was hungry. So he got mad at the fig tree and withered it. And the same day was the day he went into the temple and whipped the money changers. Would you say he had bad days? That perhaps he was a human being? And if we had thought of him more that way, we would have known that we were like him and we also were capable of reacting to him, of emulating to him, of having him be real to us, to respect and follow the teachings. And of course, Jesus only had one commandment, one teaching. He didn't give us 10 commandments. He didn't give us 600 rules for daily living. He gave us one commandment with two parts: love God and love your neighbor. That's the entirety of Jesus' teaching. Love God and love your neighbor. And he made them equal. He did say God first, but love your neighbor the same way as you would God. He lifted the neighbor, who is everybody else in our world, lifted them up, knowing that made in the image and likeness of God, made of God stuff. That was Jesus' teaching. That's all of it. So in New Thought, we say it's all God, that we're all made from the same stuff. You know, the medieval alchemists, I think they were onto something. Alchemy was based on the belief that there are 4 basic elements in nature, in the whole world: air, fire, water, and earth. You see this today in indigenous medicine wheels, yes? And we're coming back to more of an acceptance and understanding of that, but for years, we've been compartmentalizing life, breaking things down. So the alchemists gave way to the chemists, and they were all about identifying little elements, right? And seeing this, how everything was different rather than how things were together. So alchemy was rooted in a complex spiritual worldview in which everything, listen to this, everything around us contains a sort of universal spirit. Everything, a universal spirit, including metals. And they believed metals to be alive and that metals could actually grow in the earth. And so they were trying to grow metals, especially gold, and transmute other metals into gold. Well, the authorities didn't like that, because if somebody could just come along and create unlimited gold, then they could have more money than the people in power and they could take the power over, right? So alchemy was outlawed. And then our scientists poo-poo all that stuff and it was taken over by chemistry. But now we're understanding and realizing that everything is alive. The stones that we think are the most inanimate in the world are actually composed of the same universal stuff as you and me. You know, quantum physics is showing us that now. When we break things down to I was going to say the smallest particle, but no, a particle is, to the smallest essence of it, it's all the same. It's energy. It's all energy. And it's all God. It's just vibrating at different speeds. So ultimately, what the alchemists needed was some way to change the vibration of one metal to make it into gold. Could they have done that through mind power? Consciousness? Is that what the successful magicians and wizards did? Because there were successful wizards in the old days, weren't they? In alchemy, there's a legend or a myth, or it may be real, I'm not sure. But the emerald tablet, which is supposed to have inscribed upon it the secret of the universe, which is essentially as above, so below. And I have found a translation by Sir Isaac Newton, which says, that which is below is like that which is above, and that which is above is like that which is below to do the miracle of one thing only. And as all things have been and arose from one by the mediation of one, So all things have their birth from this one thing by adaptation. Doesn't this kind of sound like what we talk about when we're saying we can manifest with our intention? And so if we consider above to be God or the spiritual realm or consciousness, then whatever is in consciousness will outpicture in our experience below, right? So our teaching is all about consciousness. That's where we do our work. That's where we make changes in our lives and in our world, in our consciousness. So instead of criticizing others and complaining about violence and war, for instance, instead of dropping bombs to create peace, we look to see what's the basis of war. And we find that it's fear and poverty and sickness and ignorance. And so we build schools and feed people and build hospitals. And then we look in ourselves to see what's the consciousness of peace. And where in my consciousness am I not at peace? That's how we start building peace in the world, right? So what really makes me think is that those opposites are true. Not only what we create in consciousness appears in our reality, but also what we experience in reality, what do we do with it? We put it back into our consciousness, our memories, and our consciousness, which just repeats it over and over and over again. So what is above, so below, but also so as below, so above. So there are a few ways in which our teaching is different from what we may have left behind, what we were taught to blindly accept. So I offer a few of them to you as tools, which you are free to use or not, whatever works for you. So the first principle is that there is one cosmic reality principle and presence in this universe that we call God. This is what we say every morning. All creation originates in this one source. God is all there is. Therefore, each human being is a creation of God made of the God substance, a unique, individualized incarnation of spirit. This incarnated spirit is my essence. That's what I am, an incarnated spirit, as are you and every other human being. And that's principles 1 and 2 of the Unity 5 principles, isn't it? Spirit, this is the third principle, is the great causative power in the universe. The word or thought of God is eternally initiating the divine creative process. Law is continually set in motion to create from the one unformed substance infinite numbers of forms from the thought patterns of spirit. And so since the human spirit is one with universal spirit, then all human thought is also creative, reenacting in microcosm that divine creative process. Okay with that so far? In the infinite, all conceivable good is always available, ready to flow into human experience. And there's this cosmic process which causes this flow of good to get activated and to flow into our experience. So what exists, infinite potential, how do we activate that and bring it into our experience? Well, somehow that cosmic process is human belief, faith, acceptance. And we accept through prayer and affirmation, because that's what our prayer is, right? Not asking, not begging, not pleading. It's affirming. It's accepting. When we go into prayer, we are accepting. And we're always praying, yes? The creative principle is constantly going on, with or without our awareness. With or without our awareness, we are creating. So it's not a bad idea to get conscious, right? This universe is a universe of wholeness, of allness, of oneness. And therefore, spirit is infinitely inclusive. Spirit can't exclude anything, even seeming opposites. And since we're also one with spirit, then opposites are available to us. We can choose. We can choose to experience freedom or bondage, abundance or lack, joy or misery. It's all God. It's up to us what we call it and how we experience it. The infinite bounty of spirit is the birthright of every human being. If we are children of God, we are heirs to the fortune, right? Simply because of who we are. Now, this isn't permission to be selfish and grab a whole bunch of stuff and hoard it up. Because if you truly know that you are eternally provided for, why on earth would you want to drag around a whole bunch of stuff you don't need right now? Right? If you can truly trust the universe to be always supplying. It's a reciprocal universe, always in balance. For every visible form, there is an invisible counterpoint, what Butterworth called the mental equivalent. The mental equivalent. Everything you see started as an idea. So the universe is reciprocal, and reciprocal means binding on each of two parties equally. So the universe is one party, obviously, and the other party is you. And I use you both plural and singularly, right? We may have forgotten about it, but we are subject to that reciprocal agreement we have with the universe. For instance, the divine givingness must always be balanced by receivingness or acceptance. Have you ever tried to give a gift to somebody who won't take it? You need that balance. And likewise, our acceptance of life's gifts obligates us to give in return, because that's how the universe works. That's how the law works. And if we misuse the law, we will always have some form of disorder or dysfunction. And when we correct what it is in our thinking, correct how we're using this law, then harmony returns. Simple, right? But not easy. Ernest Holmes describes this principle of reciprocity as the general law that what we are to the universe will be to us. That what we give out, that we shall receive back. That like attracts like that whatsoever a man soweth, that shall he also reap, and that no man escapes the law. Unity calls this the law of mind action. Leanne knows, right? Another good thing to know, God doesn't forgive. Forgiveness does not come from God, because on the spiritual plane, justice without judgment is automatic, karma, if you will. God doesn't know anger. God doesn't know unforgiveness or punishment. These are concepts that we've made up. The worldly suffering resulting from misusing the law or being ignorant of the law, that automatically ceases when the misuse or the ignorance is corrected. Sometimes we think that's God forgiving us, but it's not. It's simply the outworking of an impersonal principle. That's how it works. When we stop misusing the law, harmony is restored. So human forgiveness, on the other hand, is the process that frees us to live in the eternal now. It is essentially that we completely forgive ourselves and all others if we want spiritual growth. If I'm holding on to old resentments, real or imagined, and haven't fully forgiven them, there's an insurmountable block on my path. To free myself, I must totally and genuinely forgive myself and those who I believe have injured me. Unforgiveness will always result in dysfunction, because that's a misuse of the law. So if there's dysfunction in our lives, we need to look to see what we haven't forgiven, or what false concepts and beliefs and opinions we're holding. What about eternal life? What does Unity teach about eternal life? Well, immortality is a universal principle. It's a universal truth. It's not a bargain made with the universe or God for good behavior, because God knows only life. Eternal continuity, evolution, and expansion. All of us as humans are incarnations of God, and our souls are eternal. They can never die. Our souls can never be lost. Death is a human concept, not a divine idea. The essence of every human is divinity, eternal and changeless, the divine spark that can no more die than God can die. Holmes goes on, to me, immortality means the eternal continuance and self-knowingness of my individualized consciousness, forever expanding as I grow in enlightenment and the capacity to love. Some people theorize that that's incarnation. Some people, maybe it's experience on a different plane, but it's the continuity of the individualized consciousness. So the cosmic Christ is not a person, but a principle, a universal presence. And in the unique personality of Jesus, the cosmic Christ was possibly more fully displayed and developed than in any other person of whose life we have record of. But Christ is not limited to any person, nor does it appear at any one age or at any time. It's as eternal as the source itself, Spirit's idea of self. Again, Holmes says, as the Christ awakens, I love this, the divine spark shot from the central fires of the universal flame is able to warm other souls by the radiance of its self-unfoldment. So this is why everything starts here. Peace on earth begins with me, all of it. That's what our spiritual journey is for. Each human partakes of the Christ nature to the degree that the cosmic Christ is recognized and revealed through him or her. To that degree, he or she becomes the Christ. You know, when we say namaste, that's what it's saying. The Christ in me recognizes the Christ in you. Namaste.
Namaste.
Would you join me in just a few moments? Becoming aware of that spark in the divine, shot from the central flame. It is alive in each and every one of us. And visualize that flame for yourself, whether it be in your throat, your heart, your solar plexus. Where is it that you feel the presence of that flame? And breathing into it, allow it to expand, to grow bigger, to become more visible, to be observable through your skin, so that as you walk your path in life, you are a light for the world. You are able to warm other souls by the radiance of your self-unfoldment. Know that your word is creative, and that your prayer is acceptance of all that is good. Our thoughts, our prayers